Saintess summons skeletons. By Morn. Chapter 101, Reset. Sofia flew west by following the mountain chain that went all the way along the north of the human kingdoms. Counterintuitively enough, she flew faster the closer she was to the ground, since that was where most mana gathered. And since she had to cross the whole human continent from east to west, she would avoid getting too much attention by going along the mountains. While Kavaus was the easternmost kingdom, Savoln was the westernmost one, or used to be. Just east of Savoln was Skirich. Varanya and the orphanage being in the southwest of the kingdom, and Einzen, the capital, being in the east. She planned to first go check on everyone at the orphanage, maybe give the kids and Clarice some money or something, and pick up the necromancy grimoire. It didn't feel right letting the book rot under the orphanage's floorboards. She wanted to at least try identifying it, and try to trace back its origins. Then she wanted to check in the middle of Skirich, where the old capital from the trial should have been. And her final destination was adventuring into Savoln, to search for what remained of the slaver camp and her sister, forgotten atop one of the many floating islands created by the tide. Not knowing when to stop, she flew west for days on end, only ever landing to eat, drink or sleep. That was until she spotted a wall of mana on the horizon. Looks like I reached Savoln. Information about what went on inside the abandoned kingdom now was rather sparse, but she at least knew of the corruption. Anyone who lived on the west side of Skirich would know about it. She had no real details about what it was, but from all accounts, it was a nasty thing, and the spread was rather violent. It had eaten the whole kingdom of Savoln and even spread well into the original territory of Skirich before the barrier was erected. Now, with the army patrolling the border to prevent monsters from leaking out and the barrier spanning the whole east and northern borders of Savoln stopping the corruption dead in its tracks, the dangers from the fallen kingdom were contained. That was about as much as she knew about the situation of her birthplace. It was Sofia's first time actually seeing the barrier. The mana patterns making it up were fine and detailed, all the while requiring very little energy. Whoever designed that was an absolute master of rituals, no doubt. Maybe the dwarves were involved. On the other side of the barrier, the landscape was incredibly different. It didn't seem affected by the cold winter at all. The grass was long and wavy, trees had too many or too few branches, heavy with lively shivering leaves, everything looked unnatural. But by far the standout feature was the light pink color that every plant boasted. Trunks, grass, and leaves alike, all tainted in pale shades of pink. It's unsettling, but I expected worse from the descriptions. Curious, she approached the barrier and poked a finger through it. It felt like pushing through a thin spider net. You have entered the dungeon, Savoln, the Ebbing Kingdom, certain death. Lovely place to call home. I'll go back in there soon enough. Seeing a stubby round cylinder on the path of the barrier further south, she flew there. It was a smooth stone pillar on top of which was an insane ritual circle. Insane was the only way Sofia could describe the design, the sheer complexity of which gave her a headache by looking at it. Getting closer, she noticed something unusual. The stone cylinder was very cleanly cut. In fact, it had a peculiar texture, one she recognized. Orvad. Guess the guy actually survived the Alphagiad attack. Since the barrier is only a decade old, he must still be around now. Interesting. Lucky that I'm no longer a demon. I hope he's no longer working with the church. Could Perith take him on? Maybe. He can fly though, and Perith cannot. Whatever, I'll worry about that and Savoln when I need to. First the orphanage. Can't wait to see Clarice's face when she sees the wings. Sofia flew south along the barrier, this time she flew as high up as she could. She didn't want the military camps across the border to spot her. Though she noticed that a lot of them were almost empty. By the time the sun started setting, Sofia finally found the river that Varanya was built along. She flew over the closest village, then dived into the forest. It should be around here. She walked around the forest for a few minutes until she found them, the ruins she had used for her first necromancy ritual. Walking inside an old crypt, she found a skeleton sprawled near a ritual circle. Hey hey, look what we have here. If this isn't Paritha's first skeleton. She stored it in her ring. I'm never using this one again, I'll display it in my home. Whenever I get one. Alright, back to the orphanage then. Who knew I'd willingly come back after struggling so much to find a good way out? Well, my initial plan didn't go how it should have, but I left either way. She followed the path through the forest she knew too well, walking through the leafless trees until she saw the familiar roof tiles of the orphanage, lit by the last raising rays of the setting sun. It's deadly silent. Is everyone asleep already? She walked around the spiked fence until she got to the main gate. Let's at least act a bit like a normal person. I wonder how long they spent searching for me after I disappeared. Or did the church tell them? Who knows? The gate was closed, but to Sofia's surprise, it wasn't locked. Now that's weird. Leaving the gate unlocked at night wasn't something Director Jeffrey would do. Especially not during winter, when monsters like wolves were more active in the region. Now that I think about it, the chimneys aren't smoking. I'm not cold because of the princess robe's set effect, but it's still winter. Just one thing wouldn't have been too suspicious, but it was starting to add up to a lot. If anything happened to Clarice and the kids. Sofia activated her weapon and armor. Pushing open the gate, her every step left a deep imprint in the dead grass. She looked hard with her mana perception, not picking up much. At least no magical traps outside. Walking up to the front door, she turned the doorknob. Unlocked too. Inside the orphanage was darkness, silence, and cold air. The floorboards creaked under her steps. No one in the common room. Is there really no one here? Leaving the common room, she entered the corridor that linked every room on the first floor, the same one she'd staged her fall in on her last day here. The broken shelf and the bloodstains had been cleaned. The first rooms on her left and right were the boys' and girls' dormitories. Reflexively, she went to open the door on her right, to the girls' room. Something smelled very bad. Before she could touch the doorknob, Sofia heard the hissing of swords slicing through the air, one in front and one behind. The wall and door behind her broke in an explosion of debris and splinters, torn open by a huge claymore. The sword behind was stopped by the large hands of a skeletal ogre that barely fit inside the corridor. Meanwhile, Sofia struggled to parry the sword coming from the front with her own. Thankfully the spine was sturdy, but her muscles were having a hard time holding back the huge sword, until the chains of the 4 seals appeared to hold it back. That allowed her to kick in whatever remained of the door, revealing a fully armored paladin. As the heavy sound of Parith punching came from behind, the paladin facing Sofia tried to free his sword from the chains, pulling without success. Sofia rushed forward, thrusting her empty left hand toward his great helm-covered face. The paladin took a hand off his weapon to catch her armored fist. Before the impact, a green dagger appeared in Sofia's hand out of nowhere. The mithril dagger pierced straight through the hand and helmet. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 141. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 165. The messages were not at all the murder notices Sofia had expected. But she had no time to think about what was going on, though it was obvious this had to do with the church. She heard a lot of armored footsteps closing in on her. From the second floor, from the other rooms, from the outside. Worse, she could feel the mana movement of big spells being prepared from at least 3 places outside. Flee or fight? As Sofia gazed into the dark room, the stench of decay assaulted her senses. She held her breath, her eyes adjusting to the dim light cast by the soft glow of her spine sword. Her legs trembled as she discovered the gruesome sight before her. In the shadows, she could make out the small, lifeless bodies of the orphans she used to know. Her heart twisted in agony. These kids, she had known each and every one of them as well as she had known her own sister. She gripped her bone sword so tightly that her whole arm shook. As the footsteps grew closer, leaning heavily against the shattered remnants of the door frame, Sofia made a vow in that moment. With Peritha's sanctified grounds fired up, filling her body with power, she swore an oath to the innocent souls before her. She would not rest until every single paladin and priest in this kingdom had tasted the warm and salty tang of their own blood on their lips. Chapter 102, Templars. Go get the casters outside. Perith dashed straight forward, crashing through the walls to run outside. No time to cast the graveyard. She followed after Perith. No sense in separating. The paladins from inside were right on her tracks, jumping out of the broken hole after her. Running after Perith through the orphanage's garden, she saw a few things. At least 6 more paladins were running at them from the forest. Not only that, a dome-shaped shield sprang up above the orphanage and the nearby forest. Trapped? No matter. If there was one fighting style that Sofia knew exceedingly well from her readings, it was the church's. And the mana movements in the forest could only be one of 2 things, priests or templars. Perith was already rushing at one of them, she had to take care of another one as soon as possible. A priest's control spells would be annoying, but what she feared from the dome shield tactic was the templar's signature skill, Holy Smite. According to the church's own books, Holy Smite called down the wrath of God from the heavens, striking the designated location with a burst of devastating holy light. And the church was very proud of it, especially the part where it could be cast by multiple templars at the same time to achieve an even greater effect. 30 seconds of casting time. So we have about 20. Perith rushed ahead, Sofia deployed her wings as she ran. Barely out of range of the closest paladin's sword, she took flight. She turned around as she flew up, and flew over the orphanage as fast as she could. 6, 7, 8. She counted the paladins coming out of the hole after her, their swords started glowing, they sent ethereal sword slashes her way. This was the reason she flew toward the orphanage, that was the best cover. She only had to dodge one wave of ranged luminous attacks before going toward another source of mana in the opposite direction from Perith. Another Templar. It was still in sanctified ground's range, the whole dome was. This was done so that she couldn't run out of Holy Smite's area of effect. But that also helped her, a 48% increase to physical stats was nothing to laugh at, and they couldn't force her out of the zone. Not only that, but due to the peculiarities of the Templar class, that meant the Templars casting it had to all be inside with her. Angel's Bolt. Ready in 10 seconds, I have to dodge until then. There were more paladins running out of the forest's edge. How did I not see them when I walked in? You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 125. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 130. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 108. Perith was putting in a lot of work. She took a glimpse at his vision. He was fighting sword to sword with a huge man in glowing armor. Another Templar, no doubt. The Templar's huge claymore struck down. Perith's flying shields of light appeared around the Templar's head, blocking his vision and pinning him in place. As Perith sidestepped the Templar's weapon, his own sword struck down, morphing to a huge mace midway through the swing. The Templar's flat-topped helmet burst open and so did its contents. The mace stopped in between the heavy pauldrons where the head had been instants before. You have defeated Sinner Templar, leave 232. Sofia was very visible with the huge wings and the lightning gathering in her hand. The paladins on the ground showered her with slashes of light. Though she dodged many, a few still hit true, slashing the bone armor and taking away a few hundred health points every time. 7 more seconds. Choosing to take a few more hits from the light attacks, she flew straight until she was above the next Templar in the forest's edge. Perith dropped from the sky and Sofia followed him down. The second Templar had no time to stop casting before getting impaled top to bottom by a 2 meters long sword of light. Sofia kept flying through the leafless trees. You have defeated Sinner Templar, leave 212. It was very difficult to avoid colliding with the trees considering how wide her wingspan was, and the devastating power of the bolt she was still channeling was hard to concentrate through. Its rampaging heat was setting the forest ablaze in her wake. But thanks to the many trees in the way, the paladin's attacks were weakened by the time they reached her. Her health passed the midway point. 3 seconds. Perith was running out of the forest, charging at the paladins. They were right about to collide. 2 seconds. Sofia flew up out of the trees. Through the naked branches and grey trunks, she spotted the last Templar. He had already stopped casting Holy Smite. He was aiming a much simpler skill at her, the stronger version of the Paladin's Slash of Light, Light Severance. The Paladins were busy dealing with Perith, no longer attacking her. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 99. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 99. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 102. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 87. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 63. Sofia analyzed the trajectory of the Templar's sword. That won't hit my head, there's no way this kills me. Sofia released her bolt as the Templar brought down his shining sword. The attacks flew past one another, both hitting the mark. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 88. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 105. The violent burst of the bolt centered on the Paladin reverberated on the dome shield, a third of the area was lost in the bright explosion, and the whole area shaken the resulting shock wave. Light Severance almost hit Sofia, but Perith appeared in front of her at the last second, soaking the devastating attack. Then the force from the explosion followed, propelling her up and back until she collided with the shield before plummeting back down. Perith, much heavier, wasn't affected and fell straight down. You have defeated Sinner Templar, leave 199. Sofia spat blood. The collision with the shield had been brutal, it had even shattered her wings. But no matter the pain, her thoughts had never been clearer. Falling, after deactivating her armor, she summoned out of her storage ring a health potion she threw directly into her mouth, crushing the glass vial under her teeth and swallowing the liquid. Her health was soon back near the top. Spitting shards of glass and reactivating her armor, she healed her wings. Heal undead. Slowing down her fall with her reforming wings, she still left 2 deep imprints in the soil as she landed. She was lightheaded from the shock, but the paladins wouldn't wait for her to recover. Perith had already gone forward to greet them again. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 52. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 101. That was, in fact, more than enough to prevent any of them from reaching her. Sofia sat down and started casting Graveyard of the Righteous. Perith was still fighting and he was highly outnumbered. Although he hadn't lost a single health point, his mana was running low as his shapeless armor of light took hit after hit. There were still more than 10 fully armored paladins surrounding him. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 108. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 112. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 105. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 87. 8 seconds later, gravestones sprung out of the ground all around the battlefield. As the graveyard skeletons started pinning down the paladins, the fight drew to a close. Unable to move, every single paladin fell under Perith's blade, one by one, until only skeletons were left standing amidst a pile of bleeding corpses and smashed armor. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 100. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 106. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 133. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 152. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 129. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 96. You have defeated Sinner Paladin, leave 112. You gained a level. Asterisk 9. 129. Sofia stood up. The shield isn't fading. With no one left to provide it with mana, it should have died down. It couldn't be a ritually created shield, or she would be able to easily detect the source that had to be at the center. But there was no such mana flow coming from the orphanage. A priest. She had expected the shield to come from a ritual since it was a premeditated trap, but it seemed not. He's outside. Hit the shield, get us out of here, she ordered Perith. Curious, she walked up to one of the dead paladins and took off his helmet. She was half expecting a zombie from the dungeon under the church, considering the name, but it was far from it. This was not only a human, but one she recognized. It had been one of the paladins standing guard in front of the dungeon the day she escaped from the church. She knew since they often had their helmet off or their visor open in the Holy See. He was considered a monster? How? The dead man's complexion was degrading by the second, but he was still hot, and there was no stench like from a zombie. As she wondered what exactly had happened for the system to label them like this, the shield broke under Perith's unrelenting assault. Sofia's mana sensing that had been confined was released, and she instantly spotted the disorderly mana of the priest dealing with the backlash of his skill being forcefully broken. Perith didn't lose a second, changing direction. Capture the priest alive. Chapter 103, Numb. Sofia was still recovering on the cold ground when Perith brought back a limp middle-aged woman in a priest's garb. She had watched the whole scene through the skeleton's vision. It had been a strange, almost otherworldly interaction. The priestess hadn't said anything, she hadn't fled. Seeing the skeleton approach, she had only used weak personal protection skills such as Bubble of Prayers. That had done nothing to stop Perith. He crushed the immaterial shield with his bare hand and grabbed the woman, who went limp like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Is she playing dead to sneak attack me when I'm near or something? To be safe, she had Perith do the handling, dropping her on the ground and checking her vitals. Still alive, steady heartbeat. What's going on? Open her eyes. Perith's large bone fingers held the woman's eyes open, the pupils were unfocused and didn't move. It's almost like she's asleep. Sofia had a strong urge to kill her right now and move on. But she held back. She wanted to understand what was going on and why everyone she killed showed up as monsters. She felt the whole fight hadn't been very organic. The paladins hadn't screamed as they died, hadn't faltered, hadn't fled in face of the overwhelming defeat. It was unsettlingly unhuman behavior. Break one of her fingers. She used heal undead, but the finger didn't recover. Potion? She threw a potion for Perith to force feed her. That still works. Wait, I never tried to use Identify. No result. Next she focused on the priestess mana. It looked normal if quite depleted. No, she's connected to something. It was a faint link from the priestess head going northeast. This looked similar to the state Olith had been in during the trial. Is my enemy an archangel? The priestess on the ground spasmed suddenly and spat blood. She died. Sofia didn't even get a kill message this time, nothing. What the hell is going on? She got up to personally go check on the dead woman when a slew of system messages stopped her in her tracks. Warning, system corruption detected. Entering emergency state. Due to internal errors, you have been disconnected for your safety, you are now in scribe-only mode. To avoid operating slowdown, please keep at least 10,000 mana available at all times. Anomalies may arise. You will be reconnected when possible. Until then many subsystems will be unavailable. This looks much worse than I had expected. Is there a link with the trial tower's safety being compromised which got us teleported to the safe house? There were too many things happening all at once. Sofia had trouble making sense of it all in the moment. She stood up, finally having recuperated enough, and made way to the flaming orphanage. The bolt's explosion had set it aflame, and perhaps it was better that way. Still she went back inside. Perith's light opened the way through the burning and crumbling building. She entered through the hole they had made, doing her best to cover her nose and hold back her tears. She wanted to blame the crying on the irritating smoke from the fire, but the wrenching of her heart told a different story. She counted the dead bodies of the boys in their beds. All there. With a heavy mind, she made her way to the girls' room, stepping over the 2 fallen paladins in the way. 6, 7. A bed is empty. Chino isn't here. One survivor was better than none. Through the sorrow, she couldn't help but get her hopes up. She only wished she wouldn't find her rotting corpse in another room. She had to speed up, the whole orphanage would soon collapse. She ran through the orphanage, checking every room. Everyone had been killed in their bed, probably during the night. No one had seen a thing coming. The matrons, Clarice, the director. All murdered in their sleep. Sofia hurriedly left the building as it completely collapsed in flames. She had 2 things in her hands. An old, worn, and torn grimoire, and a silver ring. Clarice's heritage. She knew how important the engraved ring had been to the woman, it had been in her family for generations. Sofia had felt terrible ripping it off of her cold rotting hand, but it would have felt way worse letting the fire take it. Without thinking, she stored the grimoire and sat in the dirt. Clutching the small silver ring, too narrow for her own fingers, she watched the orphanage burn through the night until nothing was left. Next she moved to the village. No one had come to check out the commotion going on with the fight and the orphanage. Verenya was the same. All a bunch of slit throats in bed. No one had been spared by the church. How has no one found this until now? Maybe they killed anyone that came nearby. One by one, Sofia set every last house on fire. At least Chino might still be alive. This was her last hope. The only person she hadn't found. Maybe she had been adopted prior to the massacre, or she happened to be out of town for whatever reason. Maybe Chino was prone to nightly escapades like herself? Sofia had a hard time imagining the cute introverted 8-year-old going out like that at night, but then again, she had been the same. Either way, there was a chance she was alive. Whoever orchestrated this would pay 1,000 times over. Assuming I have to face the entire church. A few hundred priests, most of them under level 10, insignificant. About 300 paladins, and who knows how many guards. If today's battle is any indication, they can never kill me without a huge coordinated ambush. Then there's the Templars, can't be that they have many, there's only 3 temples. So maybe 20 to 30 of them at most? And I took down 3. Templars were the true emergency shield of the church. They're not really secret main force, they rarely ever actually did anything except training, as far as Sofia knew. But every so often the villagers would hear of the Templars going out to slay some big foe or another. But very few people could attest to that. In the stories they fought dragons and trolls, necromancers and rogue unicorns. Now this all feels like fiction. No way these guys could take down a troll, unless these 3 were the weakest of the lot. Now that she had a better grasp on levels, she thought there was no way the trolls described in the books she read were under level 400, if their depiction were accurate. What else? The magisterium's already down. 4 high priests, no idea how strong exactly. And then the real challenge. The heroes and the oracle. I can maybe rally the heroes to my cause? Seems a bit far-fetched. But Orvad is alive. Perhaps with his help. It'll be terrible if he sides with the oracle though. What about the king? A lot of citizens were murdered for no reason. If the royal knights were on my side. Or the vampires. Cooley? Velour? I can start by trying to contact Alith. The odds were stacked against her no matter how she looked at it. Whether anyone would agree to help her was a gamble. And though she fancied herself the hunter, it was clear with what had happened that day, she was the hunted. Congratulations! You have received a quest. What? Sofia had never heard of anything like a system quest, and she was supposedly in scribe-only mode now, which made it all the more weird. She focused on the message and new ones followed. The orator's approval, defeat Scripture. Rewards, second upgrade to Blessing of the Deep, special active skill Eye of the Orator, surprise item reward, more surprises. Restrictions, no allies allowed, during quest-related fights, aside from summoned skeletons. Penalty for failure, Blessing of the Deep will not get any further upgrades. Will you accept? Yes/no. Is this real? The Orator? Is that another Lord of the Deep? Why this? Why now? And what do you mean, defeat Scripture? It's a god we're talking about, isn't it? A god? Help or no help, that's impossible. Sofia was shocked to be answered by her own voice. I give no impossible task. Then a crow that had been sitting on a nearby branch turned to look at her. When one isn't up to the task, they shall give up. The bird squeaked and flew away. One of the dead paladins on the ground got up like a zombie despite the large hole in his chest. Are you worthy of the name you bear? Sofia Afinareth. The paladin fell back down and nothing could be heard anymore except for the howling of the fire as the whole village burned to the ground. Sofia let herself lay on the ground too. What a day! It was morning. Sofia had spent the whole night on the cold dirt. When all fires had died down, she got up. Deploying her wings, she flew up and observed what remained of Verenya in the orphanage. The only penalty for failure is what not getting the rewards leads to, isn't it? All right. Don't get your hopes up, Orator, I don't see any way I could go against a god. But whatever. They really want me to accept, going so far as to come in person to taunt me. Scripture is the Church's God, right? I don't even have his blessing, but I have the Deep's instead. That a lord would give me this quest now I don't think is benign. She looked once more at the charred town. If the God of Scriptures is responsible for all this shit, then no allies? Skeletons are all I need. I accept. Quest accepted. Time limit, 100 years. Reach level 130 to claim your advance rewards. An advance reward? I see, more surprises. I would have lost even that if I gave up before trying. 130 is a mere few paladins away. I know just the place. Sofia landed again to store Perith and give her last farewell to the lost souls here. No one deserved this fate. A voice in the back of her mind screamed that it was all her fault, but that was something she had developed a deep-rooted resistance to. She had known enough sorrow. She also dumped all the dead paladins and templars in a corner of her ring. Deploying her wings a second time, she departed, heading west. The garrisons at the border with Savoln hosted some paladins in their ranks. Not for long. Chapter 104, Cleaning Duty. Sofia flew at a relaxed pace. She was not certain how to best go about this. She felt the urge to go storm the Holy See right then and there, but that had no chance of working out. Besides, no matter what, there was no way she could finish the quest anytime soon. In the meantime, her first goal was to rid the kingdom of the Church. The Church was deep-rooted, that would be quite the hard battle. But if she could kill the Oracle and High Priests, as well as take over or destroy the Holy See, then it wasn't impossible. She would also get rid of all of the sinners if there were more, since these weren't murders. But she was having second thoughts about the normal priests and paladins in general. That was because one thing she hadn't paid much attention to before had struck her now. Verenya's priest of the church used to be an old man called Vranes. He had never been anything but nice to her and the other orphans. He'd even lend her his own books to read sometimes. Of course that wouldn't save him from Sofia's wrath had he been complicit to the atrocities she had witnessed. But he was one of the villagers killed during their sleep. So she was conflicted. After all, be it the kidnapping of saints or what had just happened to the village, it may not have much to do with the non-monster paladins, let alone the priests in other remote villages. She took a while to make up her mind on how thorough she should be with her cleanup. In the end, she settled for a middle ground. All sinners would be purged, so would all the higher UPS of the church. For everyone else, she would use the fox technique. Thinking this, she landed in front of a small military camp on the Savoulne border. She was wearing the bone armor, visor closed. In her opinion, there was no way anyone under level 250 could deal with Perith enough to be a danger to her. There was no way this camp had anyone over level 250, the highest level people would probably be the paladins. No time for a sneaky approach. But no reason to make things too complex either. Sofia took out one of the Templars' badges. There was a single guard atop the camp's gate. Mage, level 53. Seeing her land, he stood up and raised his bow, pointing it at her. Who are you? Declare your identity, the guard ordered. Seems he doesn't have identify, worth a try then. I'm with the Templars, she answered nonchalantly, holding up the Orichalcum badge with the crest of the church, a sign of the Templar order. Need to check on the paladins, you can bring them out or let me in. The man recoiled at the word Templar, but he lowered his bow. It wasn't clear whether he took the bait or not, either way he nodded at her and replied, they will be here soon, please wait a moment. This was followed by him taking out a small horn from his belt and blowing into it twice in short succession. So what will it be? A few paladins or the full garrison attacking me? The man had been true to his words, as it seemed the paladins had arrived a minute later on the other side of the heavy log gate. She could see and hear the guard talking to them. Someone saying they're a Templar, want to see you, they have a badge and all, looks legit. Came here flying so. I wonder if they have identify. Though even if they did there's no chance they would think I'm the same Saintess that escaped less than a year ago, considering the level gap and the unrelated skills. But my cover as a Templar would be blasted, if everything else doesn't already give it away. The gate opened and two fully armored paladins stepped out, weapons drawn. A man and a woman. Protector, LV 93. Protector, LV 118. Protector? Interesting way of putting it. The higher level woman stood in front. You are not a Templar, she declared, steadfast. That's right. Does not matter though, you came. Now show me your murder history. At this sentence, the man raised his weapon more, while the woman did not flinch. Why should we? She asked, on edge. If you don't, you will die, Sofia stated matter-of-factly. You think you can take on this whole camp? Fool, barked the male paladin hiding behind his colleague. The female paladin glanced back at the other, then at Sofia. We will show you nothing. Leave this place at once. Ah. So be it, then. Sofia turned around to leave. The guard who had still been watching from atop the gate had his vision suddenly turn blood red. He panicked and fell to his knees. A large ogre skeleton appeared behind the paladins, a sword of light as tall as him in hand. You have murdered Brandon, Paladin leave 93. You have murdered Jane, Paladin leave 118. Perith caught the two bodies, teleported to Sofia, and disappeared inside the ring. When the guard finally recovered, standing up in a pool of blood that surprisingly wasn't his own, the paladins were nowhere to be seen. The only person outside camp was the Templar in her slick white armor. Her bone wings spread out, enveloped in holy light. She took flight. Not monsters. I'll trust that there weren't more in there. The church doesn't have that many paladins to spare after all, especially not now. I doubt the Empire has stopped the attacks on the eastern border. This didn't feel so good. But I'll do what I have to do. To the next encampment then. Since she had started from the south, Sofia followed the border north in the inverse path she had taken the previous day. In total there were 8 more active encampments and 9 empty ones. They had 2 or 3 paladins each. And it was pretty clear that they never really bought into her Templar story, but the badge seemed to carry some authority nonetheless. Active Camp N Degree 2 had 3 paladins, all around level 70. They obliged and showed their murder history, only one had a murder and it was counted as involuntary. Sofia let them live. The end degree 3 was almost beat for beat a repeat of the first camp. You have murdered Mokpak, Paladin leave 105. You have murdered Odin Knight, Paladin leave 109. Camp N degree 4's Paladins were more varied, where one showed a clean history and one refused to show anything. You have murdered Peter, Paladin leave 139. Camp N degree 5 was like N degree 2 where 2 Paladins accepted and showed a clean history. In Camp number 6, the Paladins as well as half of the soldiers weren't present, it seemed they were actually busy fighting off the monsters from Savoln. Sofia decided to let them off for now until she found the 7th camp in which all 3 Paladins accepted to show their history. It was peculiar how one of them had accepted even though his history wasn't clean at all. It seemed he couldn't handle the social pressure and followed his companions in accepting. Or maybe it was the lightning bolt forming in Sofia's hand that had convinced him. His history showed 23 kills. The large majority of them were low-level civilians, no involuntary. What an incredible tool this murder history. A shame I'm actively staining mine. Since she would only kill this one, she did the same thing she had done in Camp 4, grabbing the condemned and flying up. She didn't have to show Perith by doing this. The other 2 bewildered paladins did nothing to stop her. Of course the paladin she grabbed struggled, but he was only level 63, there was nothing he could do to hurt her through her armor. Not even worth keeping. Having reached the clouds, she released her grip on the struggling man before continuing to fly north. The notification came a few seconds later. You have murdered Simon, Paladin leave 63. And then came the northernmost camp. Sofia followed the same pattern that had worked surprisingly consistently until now, showing the badge and asking to see the paladins. What surprised her was how the guard's horn signal had been different than usual. Instead she was greeted by the sight of around 15 archers aiming at her from the top of the wall. Sofia scanned them one by one. They were all fighter S, between level 30 and 50 for the most part, with an outlier being 78 and the gate guard being 82. She could tell that a few of them had skills to magically enhance their arrows. That wasn't too scary in itself. If they have mithril-tipped arrows though, no matter the level, things could get ugly for me. What are the chances though? Mithril isn't cheap. Choosing to trust her armor, Sofia stood her ground. The arrows rained down. Chapter 105, It's dangerous to go alone, take this. It wasn't obvious when she was coughing blood from crashing in a shield, but Sofia's protection was actually far from terrible. Between the bone armor, Sanctity which at the moment reduced the damage to her body by 19.5%, and the Saint's touch sash that Velour had gifted her that doubled her defense against physical projectiles, the regular arrows couldn't even leave a dent in her health. The mana-enhanced ones had a few different effects, probably enhanced sharpness and penetration, and one that was on fire. Shoot! After the arrows all impacted her, she checked her health. Sofia's health total dropped by 6 points. Looks about right. I guess the guy giving orders has identified me. But why would they attack like this? Does the army usually kill saints on sight? What now? Should I kill them all? Doesn't feel right. Even if they're like this they're still supposedly needed to contain the monsters from Savoln. Shoot! A second wave of arrows bounced off of Sofia's bone armor. Maybe I should just fly inside and search for the paladins myself if they're not going to show up. I didn't really want to implicate the soldiers who aren't with the church if I could avoid it. Shoot! As yet another wave of arrows bounced off her, she rolled her eyes under her helmet. How did they not realize that it wouldn't work after the first 2 times? That's enough. Sofia deployed her wings and flew up a few meters. I have the high ground now. Drop your weapons and you will be spared, she announced coldly. 4 of the lower-level soldiers instantly dropped their bows. But everyone else was aiming up at her. The complexion of the gate guard that had been giving orders until now wasn't so good anymore, but he still gave the order to shoot for the 4th time. Sofia dove down, not a single arrow touched her, she landed exactly in front of him. Her helmet was so close to his face that he might even have been able to see her eyes through the slits. He tried to talk again, but the words died in his throat, blocked by the mithril blade that was now lodged in there. You have murdered Graham, soldier leave 82. Sofia pulled her blade out and stored the dead body in her ring. The shocked soldiers nearby hadn't even gotten enough time to drop their bow and draw their blade. They all silently looked at the empty spot that had previously been where their leader stood. One of them dropped to his knees, hands up in the air, and every other soldier soon followed. Sofia glanced at the camp. There were more soldiers now coming out of their tents to check out the commotion. She spotted two very obvious paladin armors in their ranks. Protector, LV 140. Protector, LV 144. That's quite the high-level duo. Can't fight this without Perith. Either I reveal him or I find a way to isolate them. Well, maybe they're clean, but would they accept to show me anything with the commotion I made and their level? And what if they have identify? I don't see a good way to do this, let's retreat for now. Sofia spun around to leave, deploying her wings. She heard the familiar sound of the paladin's slash of light as she flew off. Both missed. She flew up, glancing down when she felt she was too high for the attacks to reach her. The sight shocked her. Not only the paladins hadn't stopped their attacks once she left, they had also changed their target. All the guards that had surrendered on the wall had been sliced up, lying in their own, fast-escaping blood. Oh shit! How do I deal with this? Such a headache. Both the Solar Spine and Angel Bolt are area skills, with all the innocent soldiers around. Whatever, I don't care anymore. If the Lich can be open about it, then so can I. Go take care of them, but don't kill anyone else. Perith appeared mid-air before Sofia, fully geared up with his halo, armor, and two light cutlasses. He fell like a meteor. With what the paladins had done to the other soldiers, no one was looking at Sofia anymore. It surprised all the soldiers when a huge skeletal ogre dropped out of the sky, shaking the ground as he landed. Only the paladins kept their composure. One erected a defensive spell quite similar to flying shields of light while the other went on the offensive, coating his weapon with light. Would you look at that undead Spain, I feel like I'm going to see this one often. While it probably wasn't a very popular choice among paladin due to its hyper-focused nature, Sofia knew that it also wasn't something to make light of. This skill had the simple effect of coating a weapon with light, making it deal more damage to undead. It was one of the skills they used the most in the stories. Now that I think about it, the church has a lot of connection with the undead. You have murdered Joseph, Paladin leave 141. You have murdered Urban, Paladin leave 144. Sofia was too distracted by her thoughts that she forgot to look at the fight. Judging by Perith's full health and the two dead paladins, it had gone rather well. She flew down and landed next to her skeleton. The two dead bodies disappeared into her storage ring under the bewildered and terrorized gaze of the soldiers wearing the kingdom's crest. Most of them were not even level 50. The church's reign is over, she declared, bowing to the audience in sync with Perith. Then the skeleton disappeared and she flew straight up, unhindered this time. I may as well put on a good show. Not like anyone would recognize me without the armor and the wings anyway. It would be nice if I could scare people out of being part of the church, that much less to deal with. I'd be worried about attracting unwanted attention if I didn't know even the saints on the other side of the continent already know about me. Man! That's starting to be a lot of dead bodies in my ring. No matter how many times she did it, killing the paladins wasn't something she enjoyed, she just felt it had to be done. Revenge wasn't too satisfying, it would never bring the lost ones back. But this time, looking at her system notifications, she was quite happy. You gained a level. New active skills are available. Advance reward unlocked. Orator's Touch, the next skill you learn will become a special skill, does not require a slot, and will be modified and upgraded by the orator. This could end up badly. But at the same time, This could be huge. Literally once in a lifetime. Who else had a skill designed by a Lord of the Deep? Can't be many. And I'll technically have two? If this ends up being in the same realm as the blessing, I need to be certain about the skill I use it on. Too bad it can only be a new one. Armor of Bones is not leveling up beyond 100 it seems, and it needs an improvement soon or I'll have to go for regular armor instead. Also it will be a special skill like Alitha's Air of Fire. That's great because there's really none of my active skills I can afford to forget right now. Available active skills. Dispel, dispels. Mist, in a thick mist. Scroll of, random effect to the target ranging from cold to instant death. Skeletons, group depending on your maximum mana. Skeletons. No special alteration. How's my chance? Oh, 66%, well, no big deal, the keywords this time are already incredible. Alright, so I can see two paths from here on out. Maybe I should land somewhere first. Will I endanger civilians if I rent a room at an inn? I could use a bath. Sofia flew east for a while, stopping a few kilometers away from a big city she had flown by on her way to the orphanage. The northernmost city of Skirich, built at the base of an active volcano, Mountain Hall. This time, considering the stunt she pulled at the border camps, she decided to start trying to separate her regular appearance from her Necromancer one. She had Perith help to cut her wings at the base with the mithril dagger. Then she stored her equipment save for the ring and the anti-teleportation bracelet. She would still stand out with her appearance and the princess set, but that was much better than being associated with the paladins she killed. She searched for a good inn, of which there were plenty. This was a city with flourishing tourism, even in wartime, it was renowned for its many hot springs. Finally, soaking alone in a nice hot spring located inside a mountain flank cave, which she had paid to use for a day, she opened her skills menu again. Chapter 106, Advance Reward. Available active skills. Dispel, dispels. Mist, in a thick mist. Scroll of, random effect to the target ranging from cold to instant death. Skeletons, group depending on your maximum mana. I knew I'd get Scroll of Infinite Prayers, too bad it cut off before the infinite. And skeletons are incredible news considering the quest restriction and Perith's buff. Maybe I can finally get a third hero. Now, knowing I have the advanced reward to use, whatever skill I make now will be better than it would have been normally. Or so it should. Not too sure what this is being based on. I don't know much about the orator, just that it's supposedly a lord of the deep, and that he can speak through anything's mouth, even birds and dead corpses. Still, considering the system's description of the reward, I should expect the skill I make to end up strong no matter what. I can go simple with the skill I've been avoiding until now and make Dispel Mist with the knowledge that thanks to the reward, it absolutely won't end up as something terrible like literally being able to clear up mist and fog. But that's still a gamble. Or I could go with Dispel Skeletons. Could see that going in a few directions, like an area attack that removes people's skeleton. That would be insanely strong, but I don't see the system making a skill like that, and it would probably have weird restrictions or be very expensive. I can't imagine it being easier to use than Hollow Heart was. That could also be a negative effect cleanse for my skeletons, which is also pretty good I guess. Or a summoned skeleton that specializes in dispels. That would be nice. Either of these would also let me keep Scroll of for later if I ever get a keyword like gold or something. And the last possibility is to let Dispel on the side yet again. And take either Scroll of Skeletons or Scroll of Mist Skeletons, maybe even Scroll of Skeletons Mist. These all sound great. At times like these I wish I had someone to help me choose. If she was being honest, there were two options that she liked best, Scroll of Skeletons and Scroll of Mist Skeletons. But she still wanted to consider every choice first. It wasn't even too clear whether Mist Skeletons, whatever that ended up being, would be better or worse than regular skeletons. After a long reflection, and maybe inspired by the hot spring's steam, she made her decision. You have acquired the active skill, Mist. You have acquired the active skill, Skeletons. You have acquired the active skill, Scroll of. Orator's Touch has been activated, all system interfaces will be unavailable until completion of the skill. Good thing that I didn't do that during a fight. Scroll of Mist Skeletons it is. Please be good. Interesting choices, Sofia's own mouth said without her consent. Here comes the orator again. She wasn't as surprised as the first time. Answering on the spot, can you not do that, please? I may take out one of the corpses in your ring and talk through it, would that please you? Her own voice asked. I had never worked with this thing before, fascinating. Will this happen often? Sofia asked, pointing at her own mouth. Many questions, have you not? Find the answers yourself, human. My creation is ready. He's gone? Sofia had very mixed feelings about the entity speaking through her. The scariest part was how natural it felt. There was really no sign, no way she could tell that it was going to happen or how. Her mouth just spoke words she hadn't thought, and it didn't even feel like someone else controlled it. Almost like she was the intruder in her own body. If not for the system prompts shedding light on what was going on, she might have thought she was going completely crazy. And the new line in her status didn't make things feel any saner. Special active skills, 1. The description was also very helpful. Thanks a lot. Only one way to find out what it does then. Do I try it out here? Considering the words I used, it should be safe, right? And no one can see me. If it looks bad, I'll cancel the activation. She activated the skill expecting the worst, only to find it barely cost any mana. About 200 mana disappeared from her reserves and a book appeared floating in front of her. It was a closed, title-less book, of a reasonably small size, made of an assortment of assembled polished bones. The center of the book cover was adorned with a dark purple gem, beating like a heart, spreading mana through the bones. A thick white mist escaped from the book's edges, such that no hint of a page could be seen. Sofia identified the book. Hero, LV 130. Oh. Do we have another living item situation? This isn't exactly what I expected for my third hero. Can you talk? Do you understand me? She asked, talking to the inert book. Of course it wouldn't answer, it's a book. Wait, what happens if I use the skill again? The book disappeared on the spot, but it was still showing in her list of heroes. Then she used it again and the book came back. Convenient. She tried to open it, but it wouldn't, no matter how hard or what she tried. I remember that Alith couldn't look up her status until the baptism. Is this what's happening? I can name it right, since it's a hero? But then what's a good name for a book? Should it be a name or a title? Then I guess. The Book of Skeletons. Congratulations, you have baptized your third hero. Let me guess, error time? Error. Saw that one coming. The baptized hero does not possess a soul, giving hero's blessing draw privilege to the summoner. No soul? Paratha's message was different. Can it even be considered a hero if it has no soul? Also, is it considered an object, a living being or an undead? Does the book need to go through the filters? Please draw 3 cards. That was the usual message for drawing blessings, but nothing appeared. Error. User in scribe-only mode, blessings subsystem out of reach. Please wait. And should have seen this one coming, but I did not. What is it going to be then? No blessing. Sofia fell asleep waiting for the scribe to resolve the issue. She woke up several hours later, completely red from soaking in the hot water for so long. The system messages were quite the surprise again. She stared, mouth agape at the choices given to her. Acceptable replacements have been gathered, proceeding with baptism. Please select a blessing for the hero, Book of Skeletons. Blessing of Sun. What a polite scribe. Of course, I can help. Your other skeleton is already using my authority anyway. But you better not cut or dye your hair. Summoned skeletons cannot lose health under direct sunlight. Blessing of knowledge. May this help against scripture, should you take it. Summoned skeletons know one additional passive and active skill relevant to the situation. Blessing of death. Summoned skeletons instantly kill the targets they hit that have under 20% health remaining. This. Not a year ago I still had some light doubts about the existence of gods. What is going on? How strong is a scribe exactly? Why are they all watching me? Is this real? These effects are all hilariously overpowered. Also, these will not apply to Perith, only to the book, meaning it has the ability to summon skeletons and they will be the ones receiving the boost. She thought about it as she left the hot spring and rolled around on the inn's strange floor bed. Ultimately she picked the sun's blessing. The deciding factor against the knowledge blessing was the randomness of the actual skill. She didn't like that she couldn't plan around what skill exactly the skeletons would have. Besides, relevant didn't mean it would flat out solve any problem she had, so she ruled against it. Meanwhile the death blessing was just not that good the more she thought about it. If she could get a monster down to 20% of his maximum health, it probably wouldn't be too hard to finish them off. Not only that, but from what she had seen, fights often ended in 1 or 2 deadly blows rather than a slow whittling down of the enemy's health, no matter how much one had. Perhaps that would change at higher levels and she would regret her choice then, but she could worry about that if she reached that point. In opposition to those, the sun blessing was immediately useful as long as she fought outside on a sunny day. It had a clear, predictable, and absolute effect. Not only that, but blessing of the deep covered for its weaknesses. It made sense that you could still kill someone who cannot lose health with things like instant death, except her summons were all immune to that. Now all she needed was a way to cheat the direct sunlight clause. Considering how her skills and Perith's could now be sun-themed thanks to the specialization, that felt like a real possibility. Now off to sleep, and tomorrow this book better show me its summoning skills. Chapter 107, The Book of Skeletons. The next morning, Sofia left Mountain Hall and walked north, regrew her wings with heal undead, and flew into the mountains far enough to be out of sight. The mountains were still green and the weather warm near the volcano despite being in the middle of winter. Sitting on a boulder, she called the book. It felt quite natural contrary to unusual system-provided skill. She felt like it used her natural vein structure as a mana conduit rather than having it be forced into shape. Somewhat like her demon form skills but not quite like it either. That has to be why the system gives no description still. Alright, I need to figure this out. Now blessed, the book could open. Sofia traced her fingers around the polished bones of the cover, and flipped it open. More mist? She narrowed her eyes. She couldn't even see the pages, it was all mist and glaring sunlight shining straight to her face. Closing her eyes, she looked at the book through her mana-feeling senses. The book in itself was quite faint, but it was clearly trying to do something. Many thin tendrils of mana extended from the book to her ring, brushing around it like it wanted to devour it. Does it want skeletons? There weren't really any skeletons in the ring beside Perith's original body. She had a few spares but they were in her armor's storage. Can I give it the paladins? She took out one of the dead paladins, body still hot and bleeding inside a busted armor. The book moved on its own, jumping out of her grasp, launching itself at the corpse. Absorbing the body in its mist bit by bit. In a few seconds the book jumped back to her hands, shivering. Yes, corpse-eating book, of course. Hey, at least now I can empty my ring. She was more than happy to dump all the other paladins, Templars, and their equipment for the book to devour, and it happily did, leaving nothing behind. Am I weird for feeling like I can read the book's mood from how it shakes? By now the wild sunlight escaping from the book had mostly died down but there still was only mist in there, no tangible page in sight. Plunging her hands in the mist felt like searching through thick water, but there was nothing she could touch in there. One of her observations was that the number of tendrils extending to her ring decreased by one every time she fed it one of the skeletons. But there were still 2 tendrils and only Paritha's first body in there. There's still something it wants to eat? Entranced by her new pet, Sofia took out the contents of her ring one by one, searching for the thing her precious book wanted to consume. The book started going crazy when the chest containing her precious ingots came out. What? It wants gold. The tiny bit of mithril? Let's see, I guess, money is just that. She opened the chest, and to say that the book dived in there would be an understatement. It paid no attention to the mundane ingots, instead gulping down the dragon-forged middenacid ingot. That's what it wanted? I kinda wanted to make a nice item out of that one. She brought up the old identifying prompt of it. Primal middenacid ingot, forged 100 times in dragon fire. This ingot of pure compressed middenacid is completely impermeable to mana. Item level, 0 grade, flawless. Why would it need this? That's no skeleton. But I guess it did eat the armor and weapons too. Well, that's it, I'm not giving up on Paritha's skeleton, so what's next? What was next was... The book jumped back into her arms, closed itself. And slept? For a book and something without a soul, it sure feels very alive. Now I wait? Sofia tried with all her might to apply Alitha's new philosophy of not asking too many questions about nonsensical things. Waiting for the book to finish its digestion nap, she walked with it in hand around the volcanic mountains. Forget a volcano, every mountain here is a volcano, that's crazy. Some places had lava flowing through the valleys, leaving trails of destruction tearing through the verdant vegetation. Sofia even spotted monsters with sparsely scaled red hides she recognized at first glance. They were having a great time lazing in the flowing lava. Salamanders. They hadn't seen her yet. Sofia jumped up on a large tree's branches and observed them from afar. After a while, the book slightly opened by itself, spewing a thin curtain of mist down the tree. Look who just woke up, slept well. As if on cue, the book completely sprang open. It now had 5 real, tangible yellowed parchment pages showing up from inside the mist, with a few things on them. On the first page was the drawing of a single soldier holding a bow, and above it the number 100. Is that the soldier I killed on the gate? It's one of the corpses it consumed. What about the next page? The second page was filled by the glorious illustration of 25 fully armored skeletons holding swords and shields. Above them was a higher number, 5,000. Paladins? Ooh, I very much like where this is going. Eager to see more, she turned the page. It was quite underwhelming, being a group of the same paladin skeletons, but only 7 of them. The number read 1400. The other page was full, so this is overflow? Considering how the number changed, that has to be the mana cost. A soldier costs 100 and a paladin 200, nothing too surprising, that's quite cheap. But this means the next page. A wicked smile showed up on her face. The drawings on it were exactly what she had hoped for after seeing the rest. Templars. On the 4th page were 3 heavily armored skeletons holding shining great swords, touching tips toward the sky. Above was the number 30,000. Hold up, a Templar costs 50 times more than a paladin? Maybe I guessed wrong. The soldier is there, every single paladin, the 3 Templars too. Then what's left for the last page has to be the ingot. Looking at the number on the last page, she sighed. 500,000? Yeah, that has to be the mana cost. What even is this thing? Dead center at the middle of the page, was a tiny but exquisite drawing, the size of a fingernail. Looking closer, it was a thin, fierce-looking, minuscule, humanoid skeleton with sharp claws, 2 tiny horns and 3 pairs of leaf-like skeletal wings sprouting from its back. Some kind of miniature ogre. 500,000 mana for such a small skeleton is a steep cost, not to mention the ingot sacrificed to make it. I won't be using this one anytime soon. By now she had a pretty clear idea of what the book did. Eat stuff, summon them back as skeletons. She was already busy imagining all the possibilities. Not only that, but with the description of the knowledge blessing mentioning getting one additional skill, she could bet on the skeletons knowing some skills already even without it. Could a dragon skeleton breathe fire? Does a bird skeleton fly? Using the host skeleton's abilities was something Perith couldn't do at all, so that was a large difference. If my assumptions about this are correct, the orator really doesn't joke around when he makes skills. Though that's also thanks to me getting good keywords in the first place. Now how do I get the skeletons out of the book? Do I send the amount of mana on the page inside of it? She sent 5,000 points worth of mana directly to the book, and nothing happened. The book closed then reopened, showing only the one page with the many paladins. It was stretching toward Sofia's hand, so much that the page started ripping. Do I need to tear the page? That doesn't feel right. Does it mean they are single-use then? That's much worse than I hoped. Here goes nothing, she sighed as she lightly pulled on the extended page. To her surprise, the page didn't tear. She instead pulled out a misty incorporeal copy of the page. As soon as it left the book's mist, the ghost page sucked in her mana. So it was the mana cost. And the page is still there. The mist flowing out of the book was sucked in by the page that escaped out of Sofia's hand before exploding, covering the surroundings in a thick golden fog. When the fog receded, Sofia was surrounded by a squad of kneeling human skeletons in shining golden armor. They all identified as the same thing. Solar Paladin, LV 130. Above each skeleton's head she could see the faint outlines of a status window. Health, 7500/7500. Stamina, 7500/7500. Mana, 3600/3600. Lifetime, 7792s/7800s. Ha 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 ha. She had spent so long reading stories of mighty paladins fighting in unison under the lead of the high priests, dreamt so many times of being a powerful necromancer leading armies of undead. This was the best of both worlds, and she could even reuse the filthy corpses of her enemies. The killing part of her revenge hadn't been as cathartic as she had hoped, but in a way, this was. To watch the high priests perish under the blows of their own paladins. Oh, the irony! This is what you get when you go after those I care for. I will hunt you. I will crush your hopes. I will stamp out your faith. I will destroy your very god if I have to. She couldn't wait. But for now, she had to keep her priorities straight. She didn't know what it would take to kill a god, but if one thing was certain, being level 130 was far from enough. Rise, my soldiers! It's time to hunt some oversized fire lizards. Sofia felt like this would have been an awesome line before attacking a mad dragon. Alas, all she could afford was a pack of wild salamanders. For now. Chapter 108, Heroes Territory. The skeleton paladins marched out from under the large tree's canopy. As the sun hit them, their entire body changed from the pure white of bones to a gilded yellow. What followed was a one-sided massacre. The full squad of skeleton paladins spread out around the 5 horse-sized salamanders lazing in the slow lava current. They waltzed right through the melting rock, not taking any damage. When they had all the beasts surrounded, they slowly tightened the encirclement until they launched their assault. Sofia knew they would have some skills at least, but it looked like they had the full goddamn kit, complete with slash of light and an assortment of the other paladin spells. However, she noticed that their mana didn't regenerate at all. Still much better than no skills. Also, from what she tried, she could give general orders, but nothing too complex, much like Perith had been at the start. She didn't worry too much about it. The skeletons were already quite smart about how they went about things and managed their finite mana pool. They had proper group cohesion, not hindering each other during the fight. This was an actual squad of paladins, not 25 individual ones in the same place. The salamanders wouldn't go down without a fight, but their attacks had no effect. Little by little, the skeletons whittled them down, until they came bringing the dead beasts back to her. You have defeated Salamander, leave 92. You have defeated Salamander, leave 142. You have defeated Salamander, leave 133. You have defeated Salamander, leave 120. You have defeated Salamander, leave 78. You gained a level. The book had very little mist left in it. Just to see what would happen, she tried to summon another group of paladin skeletons, but she only grasped air when she reached for the pages. Looking at the skeletons and the dead salamanders, she thought that maybe if she unsummoned the paladins the mist would come back, which would allow her to summon a new batch. So she ordered for them to disappear. They had a limited lifespan anyway. The skeletons burst into a thin mist, but it didn't gather back into the book or anything, merely spreading like real mist. Still, she tried to summon them again, but it was the same. I guess I need to wait for the book to build up the mist again before I can summon more. Let's feed the book a bit more. The 5 salamanders disappeared into the book, and as expected, a new page appeared. Above the drawing of 5 salamanders was the number 15,000. Oh, I could get used to this really fast. The possibilities are endless. Now for the real question. Do gods have skeletons? Only one way to find out. I have 100 years to get ready, that's plenty of time. Sofia flew above the lava river and explored more on foot. She tried to understand more about the book and how exactly it worked. She caught a few wild animals to conduct tests. A single crow for 50 mana. A toad for 10. Couldn't put them both on a single page. Looks like a page is only able to have copies of the same skeleton. After searching for more amphibians, she first tried adding just one, which made its own page. Then she sacrificed 2 more, creating another page. No modifying a page after it appears, and I can make the same page multiple times. What about fusing the pages? No matter what she tried, be it visualizing the pages fusing or giving an order to the book, she didn't manage to fuse pages. But erasing the pages worked without trouble, and the pages with toads all disappeared. I'll keep the crow. The book had a bit more fog now, it slowly recovered by itself. Sofia tentatively pulled on the Paladin Squad page again, which didn't work, but she did manage to summon a level 130 skeletal crow. It didn't seem to know any skill, but could fly like the real thing. Would make a reliable messenger bird. Though only to places it can reach within its lifetime. Now the question is, how far does a crow fly in 2 hours? Upon considering the question, Sofia was saddened to realize she didn't really have anyone to write to anymore. The only useful contacts she had were Cooley and Velour. The former, which she didn't doubt would smash the undead bird to bits, and the other one living on the opposite side of the continent. I should try to expand my social circle a bit. The opportunity came faster than she ever imagined. Sofia kept walking through the trees, petting the skeleton crow on her shoulder, when she stumbled upon a campsite in a thicket. It was a nice one-person camp with a small tent, a circle of rocks for a fire pit, stripped logs for sitting in a line between 2 trees to hang wet clothes. Someone was sitting near the fire, roasting a bird on a stick above the flames. All kinds of alarm bells rang in Sofia's mind. Hero, LV 248. She was a narrow-eyed teenager with long straight black hair tied in a ponytail. She wore a simple short-sleeved black shirt and pants, with heavy reinforced boots. She had a longbow slung across her chest, a short bow tied to her leather belt, and a strange bow without a string on her lap. And that was it. She looked up at the intruder in her personal space, scanning Sofia top to bottom, not giving more of a reaction. She focused back on her roasting bird. Want a seat? There's another log. But you eat your own food, she said offhandedly, her eyes burning holes through the almost cooked bird. She doesn't have identify? And not a word about the wings or the crow. Sofia wasn't wearing her armor, but she still wasn't someone you would mistake for a normal person. Not that a normal person would take a stroll through these volcanic mountain jungles anyway. Sure, there's not much sunlight making it through the leaves, no skeleton invincibility. But Perith could still probably deal with her. Maybe. She has to be a ranged fighter with all these bows, she'd be at a disadvantage fighting here. So you're the escaped Saintess the king has been pestering me about, the girl said, slowly rotating her bird above the fire. She was very soft-spoken, and she sounded curious more than anything else. Curious and uncomfortable. Sofia stopped midway through sitting down at the question. So she does know. Okay. That's me, Sofia acquiesced, plopping down on the log since the hero didn't react to her answer. Oh. Can't be helped. Well done on escaping. Aside from the fact that she didn't look at Sofia while talking to her, she was quite polite, seemingly only caring about her food. Yet. Thanks, Sofia took out a large pot of hot soup from the food locker in her ring, along with a wooden ladle and 2 bowls. Do you want some? If the personality she shows isn't a facade. I might have just found myself a new ally, or at least an interesting source of information. If it's a trap then. I'm ready, she thought, caressing with a thumb the red ring containing Perith. The hero looked up, surprised at the proposition. She looked unsure, but if Sofia read her movements and expressions right, the smell had convinced her. She nodded. The girl said thanks as she received the bowl with both hands while the bird was still roasting, the stick now planted in the dirt. They ate in silence after that. At some point while they ate, Sofia's crow, out of lifetime, burst into a thin white mist, startling the hero who almost dropped her food. Sofia apologized, the girl nodded and went back to eating. They had finished their meal, and the sun was setting, plunging the thicket in a dark but warm atmosphere. The girl opened the conversation again. She was a bit apathetic but she tried her best. Why did you come back after your trial? They're looking for you, you know. They? The king, the church, even the vampires, from what I heard. I wouldn't be surprised to find you on the public bounty hit list. In fact, you could already be up there. I haven't left the jungle for a while now. The vampires too? My face must not be so well known for now. No one recognized me in Mountain Hall. I presume the king wants more heroes to fight for the kingdom. No luck for him. I wasn't planning on fighting the king and the royal guard, but if I must. Are you not going to try to stop me then? Sofia asked. I only hunt monsters, she said, still avoiding looking at Sofia. I see. Well, thank you for your hospitality, Izuka. Thanks Izuka, I'll be leaving since you don't look too comfortable about me being around. If you want to know, I came back to do some cleaning. The girl made small noises to signify she was paying attention while Sofia spoke. It was a bit strange but also cute in Sofia's opinion. She looked a bit surprised at the mention of cleaning, but Sofia was convinced she completely understood what she meant. Sofia was already up and about to leave the thicket when the hero interrupted her, her extended hands presenting a small wood-carving statuette of a fat raccoon with a straw hat. Wait, Sofia. Take this, If you show it to the other Screech heroes they'll leave you alone. So she knew my name too, not too surprising. Thank you, I really appreciate it. Is there any place you want me to avoid during my cleaning? The royal princess is a friend. Noted, Sofia smiled and winked, though the girl was still not looking directly at her. Be safe Izuka, it was nice to meet you. Sofia's mana sense was constantly monitoring behind her as she left, but the girl did nothing besides sitting back on her log for as long as Sofia was in range. That was unexpected. Sofia flew up, examining the wooden statuette. Chapter 109, Mixed Feelings. Izuka's helper and degree 8, handcrafted bauble meant to be a good luck charm that attracts wealth. They're enchanted to crumble if handled by those not meant to have them. Don't let anyone touch it. That's a different description than the usual kind. I guess the identify function has been relegated to my scribe because of the disconnection. I kind of like it like that, it's a lot less cold. It's a cute statuette too. I'll keep that preciously. Who would have known my first interaction with a hero of the church would go like this? It would be nice if they're all so tame. I could have asked a lot of questions, but she looked so distressed with me around, it's a wonder she didn't just chase me out. I wonder though, is it because of me? Or is she like this with everyone? Maybe it's the skeleton that freaked her out, or she dislikes saints, I could see that too. Alright, the temple should be somewhere further up north. Sofia choosing to venture in the volcanic jungles wasn't just a coincidence, supposedly one of the 3 churches' temples was hidden in there, far up north, outside of the kingdom's borders. This was the temple most often featured in the church's books, mostly because this was a region where monsters were striving, so there were many opportunities for outings. I need to find the thing with no map. This might take a while. She ascended as high as she could and observed the land as she flew at her top speed. They have to be making some light, right? Searching for the temple in the mountainous jungles during the day was a lost cause, but at night, there was a chance. The Templars guarded the temple day and night, certainly they weren't doing that in the dark. In the uninhabited jungle and seen from the sky, any source of light would stand out like a sore thumb. Her own wings were very visible too, but she flew high enough that the flying monsters and insects from the region didn't come to bother her. Of course the Templars might see her coming, but would they know it was her before it was too late? It was almost morning when she spotted something at the edge of her vision. Got you! Not only had she seen light, she could see the vague outline of the huge temple's roof poking out of the jungle's canopy in the distance. She folded her wings and fell, only reopening them to slow her landing when she was about to hit the trees. I'll go on foot from now on. They might have not seen me yet, no reason to announce my arrival like this. Wearing her armor and using the mithril dagger, she carved a path through the thick vines in the direction of the temple. So many insects. Now the question is, am I strong enough for this? I'm pretty sure if I throw the book's 3 Templar skeletons to go with Perith, they'll have no trouble cleaning the place if there isn't anyone above level 249. But it's another story if there is. The gap between 249 and 250 is huge. She had never killed someone over level 249 except for Orvad during the trial, and those between 200 and 250 had also all been a headache before she got Perith an ogre's skeleton. She still couldn't go against Orvad with Perith as he was now. Of course, while in sanctified grounds he was technically sturdier than she had been as a demon, and maybe about as strong. The issue was that his skills weren't what hers had been, which made a major difference. Considering what she knew of the power level of those at the 4th filter like Orvad and Cooley, it was easy to come to the conclusion that the higher you got, the harder beating those of the filters above got. That's also what Cooley said if I remember correctly. What do I do about this then? And should I even kill them? She was conflicted. The church was definitely the perpetrators behind Varignac's massacre and ambush, and the Templars were also involved, but did that make all Templars guilty? The church is actively searching for me. Izuka said I would be on the bounty hit list. I'm going against the church's god. The Templars are already involved. They will definitely get in my way when I go after the high priests and the oracle. Yet I don't even know why I was hesitating. Our beliefs will inevitably pit us against each other. I can still afford doing charity to the paladins who are straight in their boots, but all Templars have to go. Stopping in the jungle, she did something that she actually rarely did anymore, looking at her whole status sheet at once. Name, Sofia Afinareth. Age, 20. Class, Saintmancer. Level, 131. Health, 5655/5655, 5 * level, 5000 filter 2. Stamina, 1655/1655, 5 * level, 1000 filter 2. Mana, 55,000/55,000, minus 10,000 Alith, minus 5,000 scribe link, 5,000 base, 500 * level 1. Specialization, Eclipse Skeleton. Alteration chance, 73%. Active skills, 6/6. Spine of the Black Sun, level 104. Heal Undead, level 57. Summon Blood, level 79. Angel's Bolt, level 100. Maiden Banshee, level 131, LV.131. Graveyard of the Righteous, level 104. Passive skills, 5/6. Blessing of the Deep, 2/4. Armor of Bones, level 100. Pristine Essence. Valkyria's Rihafen of Sorrow. Holy Wings of Undeath. Classless skills, 6/6. Fast Reading, level 52. Way of the Fool, level 6. Poker Face, level 29. Identify, level 1. Sanctity, level 39. Mana Manipulation. Special skills, 1. The Book of Skeletons. Summoned Heroes, 3/4. LV.131 Parath, Holy Ogre Eclipse Skeleton. LV.131 Alith, Maiden Banshee. LV.131 Book of Skeletons, Book. Mark of Afinareth. Available active skills. Dispel, dispels. Available passive skills. Blessed Hands, shape mana directly through the hands. With suffering, all those who touch it except the Necromancer with long-lasting agony. This is getting cluttered. Ah, I might as well sit down for now. How can I do this? Sofia spent a while thinking of the best approach to take down the temple. She summoned the book, its mist had fully recovered for a while already. She had been checking every hour until the amount of mist stopped increasing sometime around the middle of the night. Paladins again then. She could have used the stronger and more expensive Templars, but for her plan, the larger Paladin squad would be best suited at the job. First, she traced her steps back, going away from the temple. Then she ripped off the Paladin's page. The 25 skeletons appeared and disappeared as she essentially transferred them from the book to her ring. Then she took flight again. The sun was very close to its zenith already, right above her head. She waited a few minutes for the perfect time. The skeletons had 2 hours of lifetime, which was more than enough. Now should be fine. At full speed from where she was, she could reach the temple in about 4 seconds. Not losing the temple's direction from sight, and flying about 100 meters above the trees, Sofia counted the seconds as she took her distances. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She stopped. All right, here goes nothing. Armor good, mana almost full, Saint set equipped, skeletons ready. Mana currents stable, sun almost at the top. This is gonna be just fine. Sofia was shaking ever so slightly, depending on the level of the strongest Templar, this could be very dangerous. The rug is ready too. Her ultimate lifeline was a rug carved with the teleportation circle to warp to Zangdar with the ring. Like this she could have the teleportation ready in a matter of seconds from anywhere without having to draw the circle in a rush and risk messing it up. Ah, I need to turn off the spatial anchor bracelet for that to work, good that I didn't forget. That should be it. Last detail now. A small health potion vial appeared in Sofia's hand, she opened it, throwing away the glass stopper. Then she put the whole thing in her mouth, doing her best to nudge it in her cheek where it wouldn't spill too much. Don't wanna eat glass again. Taking a last deep breath, she raised both hands and launched herself forward. Angel's Bolt! Angel's Bolt! Behold, Templars, this is how you properly use holy power to attack. 5 seconds later, she drank the potion and spat out the vial. The healing counteracted the damage the 2 growing lightning bolts were inflicting to her body. She flew much lower than she had when she first spotted the temple. The 2 lightning bolts were drowning her already limited vision through the closed helmet in blue light. She couldn't see much, so she just had to trust her calculations. At 10 seconds, she stopped and released the 2 monsters of pulsating energy straight down. She had been flying about 100 meters above the point of impact, but the shockwave from the compounded explosion still reached her, pushing her higher in the sky. You have murdered Kai and Fell, Templar leave 32. You have murdered Emma, Cook leave 8. You have murdered Irvin, Hand Iman leave 1. You have murdered Samantha, Hand Iman leave 2. You have murdered Julius, Priest leave 23. You have murdered Aaron Redsand, Templar leave 179. You have murdered Crystal, Paladin leave 98. You have murdered Amanda Everbright, Priest leave 99. You have murdered Cristobal, Confessor leave 112. You have murdered Mint, Paladin leave 133. You have murdered Albert Miller, Templar leave 199. You gained a level. You have murdered Friedrich, Priest leave 99. You have murdered Sue Lee, Priest leave 2. You have murdered Vernon Black, Priest leave 42. Fuck. There's more than the Templars. It wasn't like this in the books. Shit. Sofia felt like absolute shit. Looking at the notifications made her sick to her core. Accidentally killing the pirate sailors while fighting for her life was one thing, accidentally killing civilians while on a personal vendetta was another entirely. The church's books had always painted the temples as very exclusive places, which only the reclusive group of Templars could enter. She never thought for a second other people could be inside. Nevertheless, what was done had been done, she still proceeded with the plan. Roofs gone. Once the smoke and dust from the explosion recessed, revealing the damaged temple below, 26 armored skeletons fell from the sky. Only kill the Templars. You can incapacitate any paladin or priest who attacks. Don't touch the workers. The skeletons had a simple job. The invincible paladins would stay in the light and swarm the Templars, making it easier for Perith to move around and pick them off one by one. The goal was to dispose of as many of them as possible. Sofia had initially planned to go for another round of bolting, but seeing as that would hurt more unrelated people, she instead opted to directly go to the next part of the plan, fleeing. She needed to take her distance in case a Templar above level 250 could fly and come after her. She could follow the fight through Perith anyway. I'll need to find another way for the other temples. You have murdered Brianna Stormwind, Templar leave 100. Sofia was flying away as fast as she could, and yet, something didn't feel right. She felt a mana disturbance closing on her from behind. Chapter 110, Dogfight. Sofia dived down to avoid the attack. The blade of light barely missed her. That's a Templar's light severance, she identified the attack. Looking back, she saw the person chasing her. He wore white full plate armor and had 4 bird-like wings of white feathers sprouting from his back. Fighter, LV 200+. Not 4th filter. I can still deal with this for a while. Health, 5422/5655. Stamina, 1399/1655. Mana, 32,408/55,000. Sofia kept flying away, but the Templar's 4 wings helped him move faster, and he was about to unleash another attack. Sofia knew she had to act fast. As she activated her Spine of the Black Sun and turned to face her opponent, the Templar charged at her, raising his great sword overhead. Another severance. She had to keep moving, but circling around him to avoid the attack made her flight path predictable. Back at the temple, Perith got his first kill. You have murdered Rob, Templar leave 121. The Flying Templar's blade came down, but Sofia instantly stopped, causing the magic attack to miss her, hitting the spot she would have been in had she kept flying forward. Her mana riding wings allowed her to make reactive start-stop motions, but it was hard on her body. Doing this at high speeds was dangerous. The Templar was now very close, and he clearly did not want a ranged fight. Both fighters made their next move. The Templar's light severance was chained into a skill-boosted throw of his sword, which Sofia dodged while summoning a large bubble of blood and switching to fleeing again. The Templar swerved to the side to dodge the blood but still hit the bubble with his left side. Fast wings but not quite as reactive. The Templar's sword had drawn an arc in the sky and came back toward Sofia. She tried the same trick with a clean stop, however the sword corrected its path to aim straight for her heart. Unable to dodge, she hit the sword with her own as it neared, resulting in a solar burst emerging from the spine. Her strength wasn't enough to stop the blade, but she managed to alter its course, and it penetrated her armor and got stuck between her ribs, right under her heart. Sofia expected worse, but it was a physical projectile, so the compounded defense from Saint's touch, armor of bones and sanctity was enough to stop her from being completely impaled. Health, 5096/5655. Only 300 damage. However, the pain wasn't the worst part. The Templar was fast approaching, and she had to act fast. As her mithril dagger appeared in her left hand, the Templar's sword started pushing its way deeper into the wound by itself. Sofia slashed down and severed the great sword's tip just as the Templar got closer and recalled his sword to his hand. Sofia summoned more blood in front of and above the Templar, who was preparing another slash, and dove down into the thick jungle canopy. This time the Templar was soaked in blood, but he raised his sword, and it shone as brightly as one of the spine's solar bursts. Sofia disappeared under the leaves just as the Templar launched his sword at her. The shining blade spun through the air like a throwing axe, cleaving through everything in its path, including the large jungle trees and Sofia's left arm and wing. With a cry of pain, Sofia fell towards the ground, while the sword wedged itself in the earth. Health, 4060/5655. Heal undead. Sofia's wing regrew as she fell, but the Templar was not done yet. He was charging at her, his weapon about to free itself from the ground and rush back to his hands. Even without its tip, the sword was imbued with a large quantity of mana. Sofia knew that it could potentially impale her on the way. An unrelated couple of messages appeared. Perith was doing his work. You have murdered James Sija, Templar leave 153. You gained a level. Her left wing was too damaged to stop her fall, so she cancelled the healing. As she neared the ground, she let go of her spine and dispelled it. Just as she was about to touch the ground, the mana of the sword moved, and it was coming at her again. Meanwhile, the Templar was only a few meters away, both of his armored fists enveloped in roaring golden flames. In her remaining hand, Sofia gathered electricity as she cast Angel's Bolt. Die, the Templar roared. That was her cue. Now. Perith appeared in front of Sofia, barring the way of Templar's fists. His attacks landed on the skeleton's armor of light. Perith's health fell as the fiery punches hit. Health, 66,685/66,685. Health, 59,450/66,685. Health, 52,215/66,685. At the same time, the sword that had freed itself from the ground pierced Sofia from behind, making her spew blood all over Perith's back. The sword entered her back and came out from the front, piercing through her guts, but lodging itself in Perith's ethereal armor. Health, 968/5655. Perith's large arms caught the Templar's fists as he struggled to free himself, locking him in a tight skeletal embrace. His chains of the four seals appeared, locking onto the sword that had impaled Sofia and preventing it from moving any further. Sofia ordered Perith to cancel his armor just as the Templar was preparing another skill. His whole body shone, and white feathers started falling from the sky. As Perith's armor disappeared, Sofia took a step forward, impaling herself on the spikes on Perith's spine and allowing the Templar's sword to slice even deeper into her gut. Her right hand shot through Perith's ribs and straight onto the Templar's chest. The initial shock of electricity coursing through the armor and blood disrupted his mana flow enough that his skill was forcefully cancelled. He was hit by the backlash of his failed skill, interrupting all of his struggles for an instant as he screamed in pain. Perith didn't miss the opportunity. Releasing his grip on the enemy with one hand, he tore off the Templar's helmet, revealing the agonizing face with bloodshot eyes of a bearded middle-aged man. A long dagger of light appeared in Perith's hand, and found its way to the man's nape. The sickening crunch of broken bone was a surefire indication of the severity of that hit. The Templar's body limped in Perith's grasp. Perith let him go, and as the man fell, Perith's dagger morphed into a sword, which impaled the man's heart through his armor as he hit the ground. As the light left the Templar's red and tearful eyes, he struggled to pronounce a last word. "Why? You have murdered Ignatius Everbright." Templar Leave 249. Way of the Fool grants bonus experience. You gained a level. *11. New passive skills are available. New available skills have been altered by your specialization. 176% probability check. Spine of the Black Sun reached level 105. Heal Undead reached level 58. Summon Blood reached level 80. Sanctity reached level 40. Sanctity reached level 41. Sanctity reached level 42. Sanctity reached level 43. After that, Sofia almost fainted from the blood loss. She had 2 large sword wounds and a missing arm, while also being stuck on Perith's spinal spikes. Perith entered the armor of bones storage space and came straight back out, separating Sofia from him. He grabbed Sofia however he could, disabled the chains holding the sword in place, and pulled it out at once while casting Greater Heal. The sensory inputs were too much and Sofia passed out. She woke up a few minutes later in Perith's embrace. The skeleton cradling her was carefully stroking her hair as she laid on his bones. Sofia looked through her message history. This wasn't what she had wanted. Hugging the skeleton's large ribcage, clutching his bones, she broke into tears. With a single thought, she unsummoned the skeleton paladins that were still in the temple. Unwilling to waste, she stored the Templar's body and his sword, then searched for her severed arm that still held the mithril dagger. With the cleanup done, she asked Perith to carry her away, falling asleep in his arms. It was already night when Sofia woke up for the second time. Perith was still walking. "Let's stop here." Sofia jumped off her hero's arms and onto the jungle's damp soil. She weakly fell to the ground, back against a large tree. Looking grave, lit only by Perith's halo, she opened her murder history. Murder history: Sofia Afinareth. Armand Anzan Ovohen, Magisterium Leave 164. Akramea Zerfen, son of Dread Leave 99. Jarvo, Sailor Leave 42, Alistair, Carpenter Leave 38, Eskin, Cannoneer Leave 65 Vayan, Sailor Leave 52. Zhnglu, Flamebringer Leave 182. Adrian, Butcher Leave 53, Marie, Illusionist Leave 87, Blaze, Swordsman Leave 99, Pascal, Thief Leave 82. Brandon, Paladin Leave 93, Jane, Paladin Leave 118, Mockpack, Paladin Leave 105, Odin Knight, Paladin Leave 109, Peter, Paladin Leave 139, Simon, Paladin Leave 63, Graham, Soldier Leave 82, Joseph, Paladin Leave 141. Kyan Fell, Templar Leave 32, Emma, Cook Leave 8, Irvin, Hand Imam Leave 1, Samantha, Hand Imam Leave 2, Julius, Priest Leave 23, Aaron Redsand, Templar Leave 179, Crystal, Paladin Leave 98, Amanda Everbright, Priest Leave 99, Cristobal, Confessor Leave 112, Mint, Paladin Leave 133, Albert Miller, Templar Leave 199, Friedrich, Priest Leave 99, Sue Lee, Priest Leave 2, Vernon Black, Priest Leave 42, Brianna Stormwind, Templar Leave 100, Rob, Templar Leave 121, James Sija. Templar Leave 153, Ignatius Everbright, Templar Leave 249. Involuntary, 15/37. Let's stop here.